Hello and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 64, Signs You Are a Healer. I am Katherine Bird and I am here with my shaman sister, Michelle Hawk. And we are honored to bring you this podcast, which is focus on our deeper inquiries into what it means to be healing practitioners as active participants in the awakening of consciousness on this planet, and everything in between. So guiding the healers and the mystics and all the spiritual seekers out there. And today we are going to be talking about being a healer. What are the signs, the symptoms, if you would, for this kind of life path, and what you should be maybe looking out for or remembering or being aware of from your past and your future. What's this all about? Healership. Hi, Michelle. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kat. I am pretty good. I took yesterday off as a totally off the grid day. I left my phone at home and I went out into nature. It was absolutely beautiful. And so just today, getting back in the swing of things and finding myself just feeling a little bit like, I have so many emails and I have to do the business things, and I have to be in touch with people. And so I'm reacclimating a little bit to that, and excited to talk about this today, about what it means to be a healer. And I know that so many of us are waking up into this vocation and into this life path. Everybody is stepping more and more into this awakening. So it's a very exciting time. And I know that both you and I have been witnessing this not only in ourselves over the past many years by this point, but also as people come to us and say, like, I think I'm a healer. What do I do? Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Can we talk a little bit about healer? Like, what does that mean? I know that for me, I really received this message about being a healer, and I had no idea what that meant. I was like, okay, great. I don't even know where to begin on that. I don't know what that means even. I don't know what it looks like. And I think that a lot of times this is the experience that we're going through. And as we're kind of moving through, okay, maybe I'm a healer. I don't know what that means. And okay, I am a healer. And then what does it look like for me? I think there's a lot of kind of baggage and confusion and stuff that comes up even just with this word healer.
Mm-hmm. Let's unpack that a little bit. I think it is super loaded. And first of all, the word to heal is, I think, a very charged and misrepresented word in itself. And if you look up to heal in the dictionary, it probably says something. Actually, I did look this up a while ago. This was like years ago. It's like, well, what do they actually say about this? And it means to cure, to set right, or to, it's a very clinical definition. To heal is very clinical. And so then we carry that sentiment with us when we are talking about, well, what is the role of a healer? There's a lot of connotation that the role of a healer means to cure definitively, like without a shadow of a doubt, especially like in a medical sense. Okay, so your wound heals, meaning, okay, your skin knits back together and you have your little bit of scab, and then eventually the scab falls away and there's like no trace of it. Ideally the scar heals and it's gone. It's like it never happened. And yet healing, in the sense that we are healers, is actually very different from that. And I think there's a little bit of a misnomer when we think of healing. This idea of curing really doesn't exist as far as we're concerned as healers. So picking that apart a little bit, well, what do we even mean by healing? And then how are we going about doing that? I think is an important first step to that discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where some of, kind of that piece is we go, okay, well, if I'm a healer, then my job is to heal, is to fix something, is to cure something. And people are coming to me for that cure. That's a lot of pressure. That's like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this thing. Like, I am responsible for this thing happening. If this person doesn't receive what they're looking for, then somehow I'm not good at this. Isn't what I should be doing. Like there's so much stuff that can come up with this concept of, I am the person doing this thing to this other person who is sort of, as in our medical industry, we see that people are sort of, they're a little less active in the process of healing. They go to the doctor says, this is what you have to do, take this pill, have this surgery, I'm going to cut you open, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to give you the results. And you just kind of, as this bystander in the experience, hope for the best. And, do what the doctor says, which is generally like take a pill and have a surgery, and and then you're cured. And we're dealing with so many levels of being when we're talking about healing. We're not just talking about a physical thing, a physical, often the physical is the manifestation of much deeper issues going on in the emotional and energy and the spiritual bodies. And so we're working on lots of different planes at the same time. And so that experience of like A plus B, pill plus surgery equals cure, doesn't necessarily hold true in the experience that we're having as healers going through this process with people.
Yeah, nor as the people receiving or participating in the healing work on their own behalf. There is that, again, the difference between being a passive participant completely on the receiving end of the healing, so the surgery or the medical procedure, etc., or being an empowered participant. And that is where the role of the healer comes in. And it is a little bit of a misnomer. So in this case, when we're referring largely, let's kind of clarify, we're referring largely to energy work. We're referring to many different modalities here. We're speaking a little bit of broad strokes, and yet, the shaman, the Reiki healer, the sound healer, the acupuncturist, the massage therapist, the psychic, many of these different manifestations, all operating under this archetype of the healer. And that's really what we're speaking about today, is those who are working to create an environment for the recipient to have their own healing experience. And I think that's really the important distinction right there, is the healer is not the one doing the healing. There is an environment created or circumstances created, a container created during which and for which the person who is receiving the healing, which is also a misnomer, they're actually doing their own healing work. So they're having, they're moving energy through their body. They are inviting in their guides in a different way. They're integrating information from previous trauma. They are moving and having releases in their body. They're actually very active in the healing process. And yes, there is receiving going on. They are receiving guidance. They are receiving body work. They are receiving energy, but they are the ones themselves who are doing the healing practice. And that's where I think there's a lot of that misnomer needs a great deal of clarification. Healers primarily are creating the space for people to do their own healing work.
Exactly. And, and within that, because this is the reality, a lot of people then go, well, we shouldn't use the word healer because it has an ER at the end. And so it's like somebody doing something. And, the truth is we don't have a better word. Like, this is a universal, word that we can all, it's an archetypal energy that we all can relate to. And that, like you said, there's so many people operating. And this is across the board, so many different people in different professions and in different ways are creating the experience for healing to happen for people, or for themselves, right? We're also creating this experience for healing within ourselves by giving ourselves the space, the time, the energy, the attention and focus, and the awareness around what we're doing in order to allow this healing energy to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And really, ultimately, any healer can tell you, or at least the ones who have done their work, that it is primarily they are their own best patients, so to speak. And maybe that's not even the right word, but it's basically like you cannot have any hope of healing or offering this healing work to another person before you've offered it to yourself. And I think this, whenever we speak with people, with people who are coming into this path, or I know for myself and also you, Kat, the way in which we get into the healing process is because we need it. We need to have space created for us to integrate shadows, for us to work with trauma, for us to work with energies that are coming in. It is not only a calling of, okay, go out in the world and do this work, but it is very much an initiation into the path from a place of need. I think honestly, I cannot think of a single healer who I know for whom that is not the case.
Yeah. And, I think that sometimes there's this misconception that, you kind of have this awareness that you're a healer or you're supposed to be doing some kind of healing work. And because of that, you should already be completely you should have no problems. You should have no trauma residue in your body. You should have already figured your shit out, because a lot of times we get that message, oh, you're supposed to be doing healing work. You're a healer. And then, for me, I know it was okay, oh shit. There's a lot of incongruent stuff. There's pain. I have a lot of physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, great. So how can I, ask for, being able to heal and work on myself, and then become aware of the ways that I'm doing that work for myself, and then starting to bring that work to the world, after I've, been working on myself for a little while. And I think that people get really impatient. I know there's that experience of you go, oh gosh, I just figured out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I've figured out my purpose and here it is. And then you go, oh, well, but okay, maybe I'm not quite ready because I still have all of this stuff to do. And it doesn't mean that you can't start while you still have stuff to do on yourself, but that sometimes that impatience to get out there and start doing stuff can keep us from finding out the deepest, healership aspects of ourselves, because we start focusing on other people before we focused fully, completely, 100% on ourselves, and really done some work, really paid attention to ourselves, and started the process in a profound way.
And also there are just as many people who are having the opposite experience where, oh, I can't work on anybody until I figure out XYZ for myself. And then, pushing well past to the point where they know everything they need to know. They have all the skills, they have the training necessary. And yet there's this idea that I have to have all my shit figured out before I can be a healer, whatever that means, before I can practice my work. And then we end up in a state of paralysis. I would say is just as common.
Yes, so, those two pieces. It's there's people either one place or the other, and sometimes we vacillate wildly between the two, sabotaging ourselves in both directions. And just to know that you will always have stuff to look at. You'll always have stuff to work on. You'll always have new awakenings and new parts of yourself that you realize that you hadn't fully integrated yet, because the further and the deeper you go on the path, the more you're able to go, oh, that's the really deep piece that I hadn't seen yet. And that doesn't mean that I'm not an amazing, facilitator for other people, as I am also continuously upgrading and up-leveling and studying and doing my work, right? We never stop studying in this field.
Mm-hmm. Really, absolutely. We never stop growing. We never stop. I mean, ideally. And then if you do, or if one does, then I have to question, what are we not looking at?
Mm-hmm.
Because as we are continually evolving in our lives, so we are also continually evolving in our craft. And if your craft is not evolving, then I would, strongly encourage kind of go and look at that and see what is there that is not expressing. But I mean, we're here to talk about signs that you are a healer. So maybe you're at that point already, maybe you're not, maybe you're more at the beginning of your journey of, again, I'm supposed to be a healer. What does that mean? We have a whole lot of people come to us with that, or like, someone told me that I'm supposed to be a healer and I'm figuring it out, or how do I go about doing that? So let's talk about that point in this journey a little bit. There are a whole lot of people who are there right now.
Yeah. So, we're saying this, oh, I got this message, right? And it can come in so many different ways. I know the first time that I received this message, I was in a forest in Oregon. I was living in LA at the time, but I was on this trip and I was in this forest in Oregon. And I just was like hit with this message. And it was just really simple. You are a healer. And there was nothing more, right? I was like, what else? What does that mean? What do I do? What's next? Like, what's the idea? And there was nothing, that was all I got. And for a lot of people, that might be all you get. And then you go, okay, great. Now comes the confusion. And what do I do with this information? And so that can come in that way. Like you said, Michelle, a lot of times maybe we'll, get a chart done or get a reading, or someone will, we'll be out someplace and somebody will say, well, you have this energy of a healer. You have, the hands, maybe you give a friend a massage and your friend is like, did you know you're a healer? Those kinds of things where we get those messages, maybe not only through kind of however you're going to get the message, right? Because you might not get the message through, a voice coming in. You might get it through another person who recognizes you, and maybe you get several people in a row who say this to you. And so, pay attention that this is coming up for you.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I've been trying, for the past 30 seconds, trying to think about how did I come into that recognition or realization? And I think I'm pretty sure it came from when I was working, and I've shared little bits and pieces about this time in my life when I was about 15 or 16, meeting those family friends who owned the massage and Reiki clinic, and just going in and hitting it off, and then having them share with me oh, you're doing Reiki, you're already doing this. You should go get some training in that. And I think that was my first really cognizant, somebody telling me that this is a thing that you're already doing. And yet again, it was a thing that I was already doing. Quite honestly, I sort of came into my healing path without ever really having a big awakening around it.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that might be the case for you too.
I think that the piece that I want to reflect on is this: I was already doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of the main pieces that we want you to look at, if, in signs that you are a healer, is that you are already doing it. You're already doing some kind of healing work. It's just that maybe you're not recognizing it as that. So, what are some things that maybe some people might be doing when I'm already doing healing work, but I didn't know that that's what I was doing? So
yeah.
What could that look like?
I would say that, as long as we're talking signs that you're a healer, that's kind of number one right there, is it is something that is innate in you, that is either pulled out of you by somebody you love in need or somebody in need. And that's how that happened, was with my dog. My childhood dog was my very first healing teacher, because she had a pretty significant health crisis. And so, when I was 12, I was 12 years old, she was, she was diagnosed with diabetes, and she was, going through these dips as we were figuring out how to manage her blood sugar and how to manage her diet, etc. I mean, that in itself was an awakening of oh, wow, there are all these other facets to be concerned with regarding health. And again, being old enough by that time that I was able to start participating in those conversations, and from the very medical and clinical sense of learning how to check her blood sugar, When I was 12 years old, I was well versed in like how a little glucometer works, and you can like use the lancet and get the drop of blood, and like this is the healthy range. And so that aspect of health, but then also health from the sense of being able to feel from her when she was tired, when she was feeling depleted. And what I would do in that circumstance is I would go just kind of feel how she was feeling, and I was able to tell it just innately how she was feeling. And when she was tired and it felt like she needed kind of a boost, I would go put my hands on her and visualize colored light was what it looked like to me. I was like, okay, this colored light flowing out of my body through my hands into her. And I would sit there with her for a few minutes as long as she needed that and as long as I could feel that flowing. And then either when I stopped seeing it, so that the colored light would turn off, or she would get up and walk away when she was done. But that was how I started doing energy healing work, was on my dog. And again, it took a few years. It was a couple of years later that I met those friends. And then, they were telling me about, because of course I asked like, well, what's Reiki? That's interesting. And they're showing what that is. I say, oh, well, here's what I'm doing on my dog. And then which prompted them to say, well, oh, that's Reiki. Like that thing that you're already doing is this thing that we practice. So, looking at, is there somebody in need in your life for which you are creating space? It doesn't have to look the same way. It doesn't have to look like energy healing, but maybe it's, you have a very kind ear. You listen to people, you make them feel heard. They feel cheered up after they speak with you. Or maybe that you are the person in your group of friends to whom everybody goes when they're having a shitty day, or when they're having, when they're feeling down, because you help them feel better. That's a healing capacity. Maybe again, you are the touch, the hands, right? Your friends are like, oh, you give the best massages. You have healing hands. Oh my gosh, my back hurts so bad. Please, 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 work on my neck. And then after a session with you, or after a little massage, then they walk away. They're like, oh, I can turn my head now. It feels amazing. These are all signs you're already doing it. People feel that from you and seek you out.
Mm-hmm. And maybe this isn't super present for you right now, but you can look back at your childhood, like Michelle's saying, with her dog. So maybe with animals or pets or friends or your family, maybe your mom or your dad, or a sibling, somebody was ill, or somebody just like you really loved to, like give massages to your dad and your tiny little fingers. You're like, what is that going to do for him? But he, it was something that you liked doing. And maybe you didn't really even know how you knew how to do certain things, but you just knew how to do these things. So you can remember back to your childhood and the things that interested you then, the abilities that you had then that maybe you weren't, really quite sure where that was coming from. But that these could be signs that, this is something that you've been carrying for a long time and, has been with you. So like, even with a grandparent, maybe your grandparent is sick and you were the one who was, always tuned in and there to help, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of ways that you can look back at what you were interested in as a child, and the kind of the weirder, maybe more things, the like more odd things, like what kind of a kid does that sort of a thing, that you can look at that might be signs that you have this healing mission.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would say also in addition to just already doing the work, there's also the humanitarian healer, to speak to one of the archetypes. We had a special guest on last week, Georgette Starr, and that was one of the archetypes that she referred to in her work is the humanitarian healer. So I would also look to, okay, are you, again, maybe, we're an adult now and kind of, we had whatever as a child, or we had our interesting tendencies as a child, but now how that expresses, maybe we see a challenge in the world and we feel very driven to bring integration or bring light to that circumstance. So there is, in addition to being a healer in the micro, maybe you're working on one person or creating circumstances with small groups of people, there's also healing on the macro in terms of, I see XYZ problem on the earth. I see the melting ice caps. I see, the microplastics in the ocean. I see the deforestation in the Amazon. And so my healing mission is driven by this fire in the belly kind of circumstance to create space, create light, create awareness, create empowerment around these larger scale issues. So there's that also, that like, what fuel do you have, or what lights, again, that fire in your belly as you see something in the world that deeply needs attention.
Absolutely. I think we can't overlook just this basic heightened sensitivity, like that you've always been a little bit more sensitive than everybody else, maybe in your family, or you are just kind of a little bit more aware of what other people are feeling, or if someone's, not feeling well, or, you have a heightened awareness and sensitivity in the world. And sometimes this can feel a little bit overwhelming. And if that's the case, please go back and watch some of our episodes. We have an amazing, for the empath, and was it energetic survival?
Energetic survival for empaths, healers, and sensitives.
Exactly. So go back and watch that episode. And, that like being an empath, being able to really tune into other people and feel things deeply, having a lot of depth of feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because, I think that is one of those fundamental pieces of, if we do not have that empathy, that sensitivity, then how do we even know that anything needs healing, so to speak, right? But it is because of our ability to perceive imbalance, or perceive suffering, or perceive disconnect or disharmony. We as beings, I really don't believe that this is unique to healers. I think that this is ubiquitous to humanity, to all beings. We crave harmony. Like, we innately resonate with the vibration of well-being, wellness, and harmony. And when we are sensitive enough to allow ourselves to actually feel that, we become deeply averse to things that cause disharmony, or things that are out of harmony. And we seek to adjust them to come into alignment. And I think that's where we, to circle back around to what we were speaking to at the beginning of our episode of, like, what is healing even? It's not fixing anything. It's not curing. It's creating circumstances and creating opportunities for harmony and alignment and integration. And that, I think, as sensitive as we are, the more sensitive we are, the more that bothers us, quite honestly.
Yeah. I love the way that you're putting that. It's because that's what we're seeking, right? And that then, if we're aware of when we're in harmony or disharmony, then that helps us to understand, like, where do we focus our attention, and what are we looking at today, and what's the thing that's coming up. And that can be whether you're working in, the energy field, or some sort of therapeutics, or, talking with people, or doing physical activities with people, or art, or whatever that is. You can feel into that sensation of, what is harmony and disharmony, and how are you working with it with the people that you're around.
Mm-hmm. And then to look at kind of the flip side of this, because, signs that you are a healer, the sensitivity, the fact that if you're already doing it, kind of also that, perceived imbalance in the world, and the fire in the belly to go change that. Let's think for a moment about the people who do not have that sensitivity. And, I'm, again, a firm believer of, like, we seek harmony. And the only reason that people might not be seeking harmony or seeking well-being is because there's some barrier to that sensitivity. and there's some barrier to being able to perceive suffering in themselves or in other people or in the world around them. So, we're talking about signs that you are a healer. I really firmly believe that everybody has the capacity to be a healer. And it is just looking to, is it in our soul path? Is it in alignment with our soul mission to express that or not? And again, there are so many different expressions of what it means to actually be a healer. Maybe you're a healer and you will never do a healing session on anybody individually. That's okay. It is still part of your mission to be a healer. Or maybe for you, your healing expression looks like being a farmer or an agriculturist or working with animals. Maybe your healing work never involves working with people. Maybe it never involves, or maybe you're a financial healer and you help people with budgeting and financial empowerment and funding their lives and coming into healthy relationship with money. That is also a healing expression. So let's, be very clear whenever we're speaking about healing here. Both Kat and I are energy workers and spiritual mentors. This is one face of healing. There are so many faces of healing work in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And to keep that in mind, because a lot of times when we get the message or we have the realization, oh, I am a healer, I'm supposed to be doing some kind of healing work, we pigeonhole it and make it go, oh, well, it's supposed to look like this. Instead of allowing ourselves to really look at our entire multidimensional self of everything that we are and everything that we have, and what does it look like for me to do healing work in the context of my other talents and gifts and missions on the planet and ways that I like to express myself. I feel that I do a lot of healing work through, I used to do a lot of art, and I've been getting back into my artistic path again. And when I was doing art, at different times, I would do a lot of intentional, focused healing work. I love to draw animals and such and paint animals. And so I would choose like endangered animals, and then I would put intentions and invocations in underneath the paint as I was painting, the paint of the animal over the top, to be like infusing this energy of healing for this, species of animal. And so I was doing this healing work, but in the context of art. And so like, don't let I am a healer, or I'm supposed to be doing healing work, or you have a healing gift, stand in the way of you expressing in the most authentic, unique expression of what it is for you to personally be a healer.
Mm-hmm. I love that you did that, Kat. That's awesome. Really beautiful. Again, just to give you some ideas of, the healing, it's not about fixing, not about curing, not about, problem solving. Again, some of those do come into play as we're working with different energies or working with different circumstances. And yet ultimately it's about creating circumstances where things may come into balance and harmony. Because again, knowing that like as healers, we are working in service to divine will. And we're working, we're getting a little bit more philosophical here, and I'm totally okay with that. But, what is the job of a healer? And at least how I view this in myself, how I've made my contract, my healer's contract, so to speak. And I'd be curious, Kat, if you've done something similar, where I am an employee of spirit to be here on earth, to work in accordance with divine will and with the flow of energy for the highest and greatest good for myself, for all beings around me, for all beings on earth, and for the earth herself. And that is my job. That is my job description as a healer. And I don't know what that is, quite honestly. Like, I don't know what, really specifically. I mean, sometimes I get messages, sometimes I get channeled information, but, I have a little human brain. Like, there's no possible way for me to know, XYZ very procedurally. Well, what actually is the highest and greatest good? What is divine will? Again, shrug, like, I don't know. And that's okay, but I can still trust. There's a great deal of trust that goes into it, and trusting that as long as I am holding that as my highest intention to create circumstances in service to harmony, in service to well-being, in service to empowerment, in service to life itself, then that's the best I can do. And that can look infinite different ways how that comes about, but knowing that that is constantly what I am adjusting and making sure that I'm working in alignment with that, as opposed to whatever I think might be the right thing. And that takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're offering you are honestly ways to take pressure off of this experience, because it's like, okay, it's not, in a lot of ways, it's not about you. It's not about you fixing things and doing things to the other person, right? It's it's a lot of trusting and being present and letting go, and kind of understanding that these are processes that we're going through with people, that they're the fully active participant in this experience, and that the more that we can kind of relax into ourselves and let ourselves be authentically expressing whatever that is, then it's just like, okay, just trust and let yourself be who you are and let it unfold before you. And I think that especially with so much influence of social media and all of the things that are out there that people are doing, and we have such a huge coaching industry who there's so many coaches who are out telling people, okay, well, if you're a healer, this is what it should look like, and this is how you should do it, and you should have this many sessions, and you should charge this much, and you should have this kind of package, and you should work with these kinds of people, and you should do this kind of one-on-one work, and you should do this and this and this. And sometimes we almost get programmed into us based on what we're seeing in the outside world, what we should be doing. And although it's absolutely amazing and awesome to have a mentor and a coach and somebody helping you figure that out, it can also, when we're overexposed to so many people telling us kind of what this looks like, we can sometimes miss what's most valuable and present for us in our individual way of being, and that's why I think it's really important that if you are working with somebody, to have somebody who's like really helping you figure out your thing, not just like giving you a kind of cookie cutter plan of, this is how you're going to do this thing, and whatever. It's like, how do you be you within this concept of being a healer?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like the cookie cutter healer. No, thank you. We don't need any more of that. But as Kat, as you are saying, what you're really talking about is the authentic expression of your unique path as a healer. So I mentioned a little bit of my contract with spirit. And, there's so much more in there, and looking at, who am I serving, being really very specific about who am I serving, what is the mission that I am orienting to, and the way in which I'm doing that. And granted, I haven't like scoped the internet super hard to see, but like, honestly, like, I don't know anybody else who's doing very specifically what I'm doing. And that's okay. You don't have to either. If you are the only healer of your very specific variety in the world, and maybe you don't even call yourself a healer, like, that's okay. It is totally wonderful to have this unique expression of our healing gifts. And you know what? Maybe nobody has ever heard of I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that seems totally off the wall right now, but will make total sense later. Maybe nobody's ever heard of a financial healer. I like that example, a financial healer before, or maybe that's already a thing. Who knows? But if your passion is budgeting and spreadsheets and numbers and helping people come into healthy, right relationship with their financial best interests and well-being, and you do that in such a compassionate, empowering, harmonious way, that's beautiful. That's amazing. And it doesn't make you any less of a healer than somebody who goes in and works on people and does body work. It is still healing. It is just a different authentic expressions. So please do not let, as we're talking about signs that you're a healer, this is very naturally shifting into like, okay, well, what is the expression of your authentic healing work in the world? Don't go looking at anybody else for that. That is entirely up to you. And the best advice that we can offer is to look at, what is your mission? What are you here to do? And how can you bring all of your natural gifts and abilities as a healer to supporting that mission?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we almost keep coming back around to, and when I have conversations with healers, a lot of times where they get stuck is like this focus on self. We start focusing on ourselves and go, oh, well, but I have this training and I want, I do this thing, I have this modality. I am like, whatever this I is, instead of the mission and instead of the people that you're serving, the transformation that you're standing for, what you're here to see change in the world, and you're here to that container, right? That you are that container. So it's almost like less about me and who I am than about what is this container that's being created for, this transformation in the world, this healing in the world, this thing that if I could, at the end of my days say, I contributed to this change in the world, to this evolution in the world, to this healing in the world, then, I would be a happy person. And then, and then you get to play with what that looks like. And you get to go, oh, well, now I'm going to go study this thing. And now I'm going to express in this way. And it's always going to evolve and change and grow. And like you get to play within the part of this focus, of what you want to see, instead of like, well, this is me and this is like what I do because, this is what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's a really interesting distinction. As you're mentioning that, Kat, I had something come to mind. It was something I saw yesterday. I was out in Hood River and I went to a winery for a wine tasting flight. And this is a winery that I had never been to before. And I look, and their mission statement is like really big on the wall. And their mission statement is to cut the divorce rate in America by half through wine. And so I look at that. I love that. And they say more about that on the back of the label of the bottle. I looked and it said, by inviting couples to share a glass of wine every night, or, maybe a few times. I don't know, right? I don't drink a lot. That would be too much. But for inviting couples to get together and to share and to have an experience together, like, again, like ultimately the mission, and I don't know if this is really good marketing or if this is actually like their mission that they have, but either way, they're saying like, hey, this is what we want. Like, through wine, we're looking to heal the nature of relationships and heal, the marriage statistic and heal the connections that we have through each other by creating opportunities for intimacy through wine. So this is, I loved it. I was like, oh, that's so great. It's, I didn't buy any wine. I don't drink a whole lot, but I was like, awesome. That's a really cool philosophy. And again, looking to and they would probably not call themselves healers. I don't know, maybe they would, but looking to, is this part of that healing mission, that healing expression for, as it is showing up through them, showing through a wine. But again, looking back to like, what is the mission that we're here to work with? This is I feel like we're shifting a little bit. And that's totally okay. We always do. But, from signs that you are a healer to like, okay, well, what are you here to heal? What are you Maybe that's another episode.
Yeah, it's another episode. But, let's just kind of dial back into, some of these signs that you are a healer. And I think that we've given you a lot of really great ones, really, looking back at your past, at your childhood, at what has innately occurred within you. How are you already offering healing to the world? Your signs of heightened sensitivity and being an empath, of being aware of the disharmony in the world and the disharmony in others, feeling deeply and having the ability to kind of tune into what's outside of you and to, have that sensitive awareness of the world. What else was there, Michelle? Am I missing any?
I think you got them all.
Okay. So those are going to be our super main ones. And then we also gave you a lot of awareness and tips of what to do next as you're discovering that you are a healer. Like, how do you move forward from here? One of the things that I'll say is it's not probably going to just bang you over the head, and you're going to want it to bang you over the head and be like, here's what you should do. Here's your plan. And it is, in my experience, the path is the breadcrumbs of, and then this thing happened. And then I got inspired to go to this, weird workshop. And then I realized that this was a thing that I like to do. And, I went to dinner with some friends and I met this person who does this kind of work. And so I went and received a session and, had this realization about myself. And so it's that following the little pieces bit by bit and sort of bringing it all together, all of the little puzzle pieces that are going to come together to create who you're going to be as this, I say that we're like healing artists. I see myself, I've always seen myself as a bit of a healing artist, that because in art is that seeking towards harmony and seeking towards equal balance and beauty, and that we're creating these experiences for people, and that we're multifaceted, that just as we're healing artists. So it doesn't mean that I can only do this. I'm an acupuncturist, so I'm only going to stick needles in people. It's like, no, what else is in there in the possibilities that you have, that light you up, that bring you joy, that inspire that creative feeling inside of you that can contribute to, this healing work that you're doing. There's so many things out there. Like it's such a creative profession, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and again, there are myriad ways for that healing nature to express, where maybe you never come out as a healer. Maybe you never claim that. That is still okay. And I know people for whom that's the case, where they, actually a friend of mine who is a stylist and makeup artist, she never tells people that that's really what's going on unless she's working with somebody for whom, they're already sensitive to that. But she and I spoke extensively about, the sacred practice of adornment, and as a form of worship and as a form of healing our relationship with ourselves. And she does a lot of work in corporate land of styling for commercials or video shoots or whatever. And yet there's this whole undercurrent that she never tells anybody about. And yet she knows that when she shows up to do this work, it is with this energy and this presence. So knowing that as you are, again, claiming your relationship of I am a healer, that could be, claiming that and speaking it and owning it could be part of that. It doesn't necessarily have to, but I invite that question of what is your unique expression of the most authentic healing gifts as they are coming through you right now, as who you are.
And I think, it doesn't mean that you have to quit your job. Like sometimes we get this message and we're like, oh my God, I have to quit my job and like go study this thing and, do this woo-woo bullshit. Like, I, just as Michelle's saying about this stylist, like I've met, a hairstylist, who is like, yeah, when I'm washing someone's hair, I'm actually giving them, Reiki and energy work. And they don't know that that's what's happening, but that's what I'm doing. I don't ever talk about it, but they always feel amazing when they're done and they want to come back. I have met, I met someone who was a stripper. And she was doing energy work on the men while she was doing like lap dances and stuff, and was using, this healing work while she was doing this, adult, entertainment work. And that was how she was expressing at that time. I've met, people, lots of photographers who are out there doing healing work with people, helping them with their self-image and their body, loving their body and seeing themselves as powerful and beautiful and in a different way. And they're absolutely doing healing work. So don't think that because you're getting this message or having this realization about yourself that it means you have to like, grind your life to a screeching halt and do something completely different in the way that you're seeing it out there. It might be a new awareness and expression inside of what you're already doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. So let's, we're about done with our time for today. Let's leave people with a couple of resources. I want to point people back to, some tools of, okay, I'm a healer. Now what? Like, what do I do with that? Kat, what are some of our episodes that you would recommend referring people back to? We mentioned
energetic survival for empaths.
Mm-hmm. We did the healing archetypes episode. We did talk about specifically the archetype of the healer and how we have a lot of wounding associated with that. I would recommend going back to look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. We've done so many episodes now. My brain is like, I'm a jumble of all of it. Mm-hmm. But basically, go to our YouTube channel or iTunes or Stitcher. You can access everything through our website, shamansistersessions.com. And go and check out all of our past episodes. There's just a wealth of information and lots of, vital guidance. If this is you and you feel like you're on this path, there is so much to consider and take in. So we do refer you back to our previous episodes. And from our website, shamansistersessions.com, you can also sign up for our newsletter and you'll receive updates as to the upcoming episodes. And when new episodes come out, you'll get those first.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. Also, you can reach out to us via our email address, shamansistersessions@gmail.com. If you have any revelations, comments, questions, if there's any topic that you would love to hear us discuss, we would love to hear that from you or any guests that you'd like us to interview or have on the show. You can also, if you are interested in supporting our work, please become a patron of our podcast via Patreon. That's patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions is our Patreon page. There are so many behind the scenes costs to producing this work, and we are delighted to offer you this amazing content. It is totally free, it is ad free, and it always will be. And also, if you're interested in supporting us to make sure that we continue to put out amazing content every single week, please consider becoming a patron. Even $1 a month is helpful. So again, that's patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions. To give you a heads up of what's coming up over the next couple of weeks, next week on May 1st, we will not be having an episode. That's Tuesday, May 1st. We're taking that off due to some travel plans. But the following week, May 8th, Tuesday, May 8th, we have special guest Katherine Satori, who will be joining us to speak about initiation on a feminine leadership path. Her work is really wonderful. She's got an amazing presence and she has a lot of fantastic things to say. So we are super excited to welcome her. Again, that's Katerina Satori on May 8th, Initiation on a Feminine Leadership Path.
And we want to thank all of our new Patreon supporters that have signed up just in the last week, and especially Kai and Jacqueline, who are at our, what are they, the alchemical
allies.
Our alchemical allies. So thank you guys. We appreciate your support. We appreciate all of you and your contributions to us and to this work in the world. So grateful, so honored. And yeah, anything else coming up for you, Michelle, right now?
I had a couple of spaces open up in my my client roster, as I had a couple people shift out of long-term work with me. And so I am offering for, I think about 2 right now, is 2 people what I've got space for in my current schedule. If you're interested in joining me in terms of spiritual warrior mentorship, that's something that we can talk about as a longer term, in-depth investigation of your work in the world and the fullest expression of who you are as a spiritual warrior. Or if you're interested in master code activation, that's another offering that I have out for people who know that they have the master energy. I work with the masters who have not yet claimed their mastery. So again, this is in whatever field. This is healing work field. This is finance. This is coaching. This is writing. Whatever your mastery is, if you are feeling in alignment with owning and claiming and fully expressing that master energy, and you are not quite sure how to do that, let's talk about that. That's something that I am really enjoying working on with people. So you can go ahead and reach out to me, Michelle at joyofenergy.com.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah.
Well, right now, my main focus is for Healer's Process, which is my 3-month intensive online experience with a retreat. And this is this is like the must-have fundamental work for any healers and those who maybe aren't even claiming that yet, but who want to learn how to work on themselves very deeply. So we're going into all the processes of finding out who you are, how you work, and cleansing and purification, grounding, supporting yourself energetically, opening your channel, and being able to bring this authentic expression of your work to the world in a supported, guided, grounded, sustainable way, which is what I'm so passionate about. And so you can find out more information about that on my site, katherinebird.com. And also I have coming up here in just a very short period of time, I have a masterclass coming up on the healer archetypes, healing the healer archetypes. And it's starting so soon that if you don't get on that, send me a message to get on my mailing list, and you will be included in the recorded replay that will come out afterwards.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I know that's starting in like 25 minutes, so we got to wrap up here. And again, to everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It is our great joy to continue to offer these conversations to you, this wealth of information, and happy integration. Let us know how it goes. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.